Hi everyone, my name is Erik Adler, and today I'd like to talk about the fifth book in the Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. I have the omnibus edition with all the 7 books in one volume, and I also have the children's books which I read as a child 30 years ago, and it's very funny to rediscover this world after 30 years and see what impression it makes on me now, and I really enjoy this series, I must say. I love reading it. This fifth book is called The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, where the two younger Pevensey children, Edmund and Lucy, return to Narnia again. The 2 older ones, Peter and Susan, are not allowed by Aslan, the lion, who is a metaphor of God, of course, to return to Narnia because they have become too old. We were told in the last book. And Peter is now studying for exams with Professor Kirk, the professor in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, who also appeared in the very first Narnia book, according to Narnia history, the magician's nephew as a child. And Susan is traveling with the Pevensey children's parents in the US, we are told. So they are both not included in this book. But they bring a cousin of theirs, Eustace Scrub, to Narnia, and he is described as a really mean little boy. The Edmund and Lucy have been invited to his family, his uncle, their uncle in Cambridge, where they stay. And Eustace Scrub is constantly teasing them, a little bit like Edmund was doing to his siblings in The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, perhaps even a little bit worse here. And then they are transported by way of a magic painting, the painting of a sea with a ship into the sea, and this Eustace Scrub, their cousin, also follows them. And on this ship they meet Caspian, who is now a king, Caspian the 10th, because in their world 1 year has passed in England, and in Narnia 3 years has passed this time, not 1,000 years, fortunately. And Caspian is on his way to look for the 7 high lords which Miraz sent out on ships to discover the east away from Narnia, to get rid of these lords and get rid of all criticism and so on. And Caspian wants to find them to bring them back to Narnia. And the ship in the book is well described. You really get to know it, how it works, what is in there and everything. There are also beautiful passages in this book, I must say. For example, Lewis writes, when they returned aft to the cabin and supper, and saw the whole western sky lit up with an immense crimson sunset, and felt the quiver of the ship, and tasted the salt on the lips, and thought of unknown lands on the eastern rim of the world, Lucy felt that she was almost too happy to speak. There are also some diary entries actually made by Eustace, because he gets hold of a notebook and makes diary entries, and they are very funny because you see his perspective of this journey, and he doesn't like it at all. He is constantly complaining about everyone and putting himself in a better light. And these diary entries are really a humorous part of the book. They are really funny. I would have liked there to be more of these. Lewis also writes, by the way, I have never yet heard how these remote islands became attached to the crown of Narnia. If I ever do, and if the story is at all interesting, I may put it in some other book. Unfortunately, he didn't. That's a pity. But what we get is a more dynamic story than in Prince Caspian. There are a lot of things happening. They visit a lot of islands on their journey to the east, to the end of the world. And these islands are all described in different ways, or different things happen. It still becomes a little bit repetitive because there are a lot of landing scenes where they go ashore and so on, of course. But it's these stories, what happens on these islands is very interesting. And I remember from my childhood 2 of these scenes, namely Eustace being transformed into a dragon, and on another island where they found this small lake the water which turns everything to gold. And they found also at the bottom of the lake the gold statue of a man, and it takes a while for them to understand that if they put anything into the lake, it will turn into gold. And this, of course, is a satire on greed, and a big theme in this book is fighting your own weaknesses, because the main characters, they all have to face their own weaknesses. They are tested again and again. Greed is an important weakness. Envy. Lucy has always envied her older sister Susan for being more beautiful, and then she has the possibility by magic to make herself more beautiful than Susan, for example. Eustace and Caspian both have to face their own greed, and in addition, Caspian has to face his responsibility as a king. He is not allowed to leave his men and neglect his country as a king, so he cannot just go away on adventures the way he wants, like the other children can, actually. So it's different for him. There are a few scenes in the book which are not really realistic, at least to an adult reader. For example, when Caspian and Edmund and Lucy and Eustace and Repichip, the mouse, go ashore to have a look at an island, and they don't bring any soldiers with them, although they are actually 2 kings and 1 queen, and the captain of the ship doesn't even suggest that they bring any soldiers. And there are a few such scenes which take you out of the story as an adult reader. I don't think children think about such issues very much. They are not really disturbed by it, I would guess. For the first time in these books, Lewis also portrays one of the children as being stupid. We are told directly that Eustace is stupid, which is fairly strange, because later in the book we are told that he has read a lot of books, for example, on exports and imports, that is economics, I guess, and governments, politics, and drains. And so he cannot be very stupid. And it's also one thing to portray adults as being ridiculous and laughable in a children's story, but to portray children in the same way is something different in a book written for children. And in a later edition of this book for the US market, Lewis actually rewrote part of the books, and in the second version of this text we are told that Eustace is incapable instead of stupid. And in these American editions they kept this second version of the book until 1994, and then for some reason they changed back to the first version. So American children who read this book today are also being told that Eustace is simply stupid, which is a strange thing to read in a children's story, actually. I always also thought that this punishment that Eustace has to go through of being transformed into a dragon was very harsh. Although he's a selfish boy, he doesn't care about others and so on, translating him into a dragon and having him go through the change back to his human form by being his skin being ripped off by Aslan with his claws, which is extremely painful for Eustace. When I read it as a child, I also didn't like that part very much. I thought it was too harsh a punishment, and I had the same feeling now actually when I read the book. So this was a strong scene. Certainly Eustace tells the other about his scales and everything coming off by Aslan's claws, and this apparently is also a metaphor of inner transformation, external transformation, and internal transformation. It is a strong theme, but it's doubtful if it is really suitable in a children's story, at least not for smaller children, I would guess. And then we have the Duffelpuds, who are small dwarfs, who are also described as being extremely stupid. The wizard who is guarding them on one of these islands tell the Pevensie children that they are stupid, and I could live with that, but the wizard has also transform these dwarfs into beings who have only one leg and one foot. These legs and feet of them have joined to create one leg and one foot, so they are jumping around and not able to walk. And the wizard did this to them just because he thought it was funny, and he and Lucy discussed this, and they both laugh heartily. They even laugh until they are crying because they think it is so funny. And when I read this again now as an adult, I thought it had something sadistic about it, because these dwarfs, they are of course very stupid and naive, but they are not evil in any way. They want to do good, they want to help others, and they are punished just because they are stupid with losing one of their legs and one of their feet. So they have to jump around, which makes them even more ridiculous, although they're not aware of that fact. So they are fairly tragic figures in the books. I guess children who read this would perhaps not see the tragic in it, but when you read it as an adult, you have a certain sense of people or creatures being punished without being guilty of anything, and I didn't really like that in this book. Another problem I had with the book is the character of Ramandu, who we are told is a fallen star, which is very strange because he appears as an old man. He looks something like Santa Claus with a very long beard and very long hair, and he has a daughter, and they live on an island like a kind of hermits apparently. And there is a table where this crew finds the last 3 of the lords they are looking for, and they are asleep at a table with a lot of food. And the crew is told by this old man, the fallen star, that they have to journey further until the end of the world, and one from the crew has to stay there, or is not allowed to go back, has to transcend the end of the world and cannot come back, and the others have to return to the island where these sleepers are, and then the spell will be broken, and it's the only way to break the spell, which is very strange. I think this mythological creature, this fallen star, taking the form of a man who can talk and everything, and has a daughter, is a very strange mythology. And this condition for breaking the spell of going somewhere and leave someone there and go back without him just to break a spell is a very strange way of solving this situation. I didn't. So overall, I enjoyed reading this book actually more than the last one, Prince Caspian. There were more things happening. There were more interesting situations. And I also liked very much the story about the ship and the journey over the ocean. It was very beautiful. There were many beautiful scenes, many beautiful descriptions in there. So although I had a few problems with some moral issues actually with the book, people suffering needlessly, people being punished too harshly even when they are innocent, and a few other things, I thought it was a very interesting read, and I can heartily recommend it to everyone. Even if you're not a Christian, even if you're not a child, to adults as well. And I look forward to discuss the next book in the series with you, which is The Silver Chair, which I am reading right now, and I hope to talk about it at the end of this week. I wish you a good time until then, and please feel free to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, to give me your comments below what you thought about this discussion, and give me your thumbs up if you like this, and I'll talk to you soon again.